Today I will prove that you need nothing but world building to write a good pen and paper campaign, no matter if D&D or Pathfinder. A living, breathing world is all you need. It doesn't matter if you are playing a sandbox campaign or a more linear campaign. World building is what drives it.
But world building, Sage! What if I want to railroad my players into whatever I want them to do?
You still need nothing but world building. Also, you are cringe and should stop that. The story writes itself when you give your players enough hooks and an interesting world. The only difference between a linear and a sandbox campaign is how many adventure hooks you offer your players at the same time. So, what do I mean when I say you need nothing but world building? Well, world building isn't just the formation of your world's tectonics and getting the scientific geography right to the last detail. Through world building, you breathe life into your world through flora and fauna, but especially through cultures and their people. You create their daily lives and the way they have to cope with the conditions surrounding them, the threats they have to face, the good and bad. You first create a world that functions and has its rules and struggles that flow even without the intrusion of your players. And then, at the table, you introduce your players into the world. Their actions within this living, breathing world is the story you and your players experience during your TTRPG campaign. You provide the world, everyone creates the story and experience. But as a GM, you have the job to make your players feel important within your world, like they accomplished something in the living, breathing world. This is the point where your players are elevated above the average Joe. Your players are important actors, no matter the scale. At the end of their journey, they should be able to look back and see what their individual characters accomplished as a part of your world. Don't be afraid of their actions. Instead, show them the consequences of their actions, no matter if they did good or if they committed unforgivable war crimes. And as acting players in the great game that is your living, breathing world, your players were a part of the living, breathing world even before the campaign, except for Isekai maybe, but who cares? That means their backstory isn't a story on the same level as the campaign story or plot. Their backstory is what their characters did as your living world before they got controlled by their player. A resume, a way for you as the GM to integrate your players seamlessly into your world. Which means the most important part of a character's backstory is having ways to interact with the world that are the very best unique to their own character. Be it an NPC they know and interacted with, no matter if friends, family or enemies. Be it their former job and the skill it brought, or some knowledge that was passed through the line for generation. Make them feel special in the world you created instead of them being the average Joe, and let them act on their characters' motivations, which have an impact on your world. And they will be hooked on your world, their characters, and to your campaign. Now let us forget those silly players for a second and get into the real stuff. For a world to feel livable and to be campaign ready, you don't even need the most fleshed out and detailed world. I said this in my first video already, but most of your world will be created during play, and whenever you need the exact detail for your campaign. Your job as a world builder is to make your world seem bigger than the next enemy your players can beat up. Like I said, a world that works even without the interactions with your players. A negative example, and the main reason I don't recommend you to play in the setting, is the Forgotten Realms. I said this before the OGL stuff, so it's not newly risen hate for anyone that wonders. The Forgotten Realms don't exist as a breathing world beyond the next adventure. The world building is there. There are some fun kitchen sink quirks, but the world doesn't work if your players don't constantly fix stuff. There are powerful, very, very powerful characters sitting around doing nothing, while the world breaks asunder time and time again. Even on a micro scale, the world only exists for you to fix stuff. Characters in the Forgotten Realms are janitors of a world that only exists to provide more work for its janitors. From level 1 to level 20. Or not even. Nobody plays till level 20 in D&D. There are a few simple steps to prevent exactly this issue. The scale of your setting doesn't matter. It can be applied to a small town or an entire country. First, characters that aren't your players. People are the most important things to bring a world to life. In pen and paper talk, it's NPCs that have a daily life. You don't need to flesh out every NPC's backstory to the detail. A small prompt on what they did and do and what their struggles and motivations are is enough. The rest can be done on the fly if needed, including their daily schedule. Secondly, give those characters a place they interact with. Simplest way is a village or a small town, of course, a place where they live. Let this be the starting town of your campaign. And from there you can world build and continue on wherever the consequences of your players' decisions carry them. Thirdly, a third place. Something your people interact with another beyond home or work. A place your players can get to know the people living in your town or region. In a classic fantasy setting, it would be a tavern, of course, but it can be anything really. There, your players can get to know people and exchange information, which in turn should drive your players closer to their goal. This information, of course, shouldn't be handed out to them on a silver tablet. Mix it in with other stuff. Add lies or rumors. Add ways for your players to gather reputation, so the townsfolk might trust them with the information they want to have. So they are then allowed to chase after their goal. Fourthly, a threat. Or many threats. Conflict is what drives action. Even if you are playing in the most peaceful game of diplomacy, there's still conflict. Otherwise, we'd all be living in paradise and your players wouldn't need to be adventurers in the first place. The threats should be variable to what your players may or may not achieve and how your players have to act on them. Not every threat has to be acted on, of course. If there is a mighty dragon and your players are level 1, use it as a legendary threat, but don't expect your players to fight against it or whatever. And lastly, weave the goals and motivations of your players into your living world. It doesn't matter if your players are after a MacGuffin, the villains, some magic items to improve their gear, or whatever else they are directly after. Weave this into your setting and you've basically written the campaign on its own. You as the GM don't guide your players. The NPCs do that job for you. As a GM, you are playing the role of the living world and its inhabitants. If you've seen my previous videos, which I love and kiss you for, and if not, I love and kiss you if you like and subscribe and maybe leave a comment on your opinions, you perhaps have noticed some similarities. My videos were exactly tailored to what I'm talking about here. So in this video, I'll write a small campaign with you. I'll prove that it's not only possible to write a campaign by world building alone, but also, if necessary, in a few hours of work. Because what I show you is the bare minimum, which is fine of course. You don't need a year of preparation. Just delve into the fun after world building what's necessary and your world will thrive. So let's weave my previous videos together after I've summarized for those who only want to see this video. If you want to get more detailed focus on the steps, watch the videos after you finish this one. Our hypothetical adventure takes place in the region of Grom's Spring, an alpine region around a lake, and the name-giving spring of the large river Grom. The town our players first enter is called Untergrombach. Untergrombach is the main village of the Gromsfolk people, a secluded clan of mountain dwellers who are living on cow produce and game. From their monster hunts, they hunt in dangerous woods and cavern systems surrounding the region. The town has one major tavern, where basically everyone meets up and talks nearly every night. All information, no matter if rumors or gossip, lies or truths, goes through there in some way or another. At the end of every video, I've introduced characters that are important to the town or region. People that make the town more lively, and that may bring your characters closer to their goals. And lastly, there are several threats that I have outlined. An Earwurz, which is a plant monster thriving on magical herbs, which are very common in the woods surrounding the town. It's the most immediate threat. Other monsters of the forest are a never-ending menace as well. The kobolds and the lair of the dragon mother Maeldred are another problem which they can't simply root out, neither players nor townsfolk. And lastly, the hag Gundrada. She'll be the key antagonist for the players, even though it's possible that they won't ever encounter her if they don't get convinced on eradicating her for the townsfolk who are unable to do themselves. maybe they won't even learn of her at all. The hag dictates much of the information flow through her agents. She wants to prevent the players from gaining foot in town, because they are after something that might be a threat to her. The Axe of Theodoric, a powerful artifact that has the ability to banish otherworldly creatures back into the underworld. The reason they are after it doesn't even matter for this adventure. It's just the MacGuffin they are looking for. But the players' greatest peril is the issue that Hexennacht stands before them. A time where all hags and other creatures of the night gather. But before that, the hag Gundrada asks for sacrifices of the Gromsfolk in the form of humanoids. So let's connect the most important dots. Asking around the tavern will lead them into the hands of either the mayor, the monster hunter named Otkar, or Else, the mayor's niece, who will introduce the players to another outsider in town called Theodore. Theodore and Else love each other. But their love isn't accepted in town because Theodore is an outsider. Else knows of the issue with the hag, but she doesn't want to tell anyone, so the Gromsfolk doesn't feel the wrath of the hag, or the wrath of the government. So instead, so he doesn't fall victim under the sacrifices, she incited Theodore to leave town with her, which is the reason for Else to lead them to Theodore. Not only does he know more about the Axe of Theodoric, even more than many of the town's druids, but he'll give them key information on how to make the guardian of the tomb the axe is buried in more likely to let them in. Theodore wants the players to help him and Else to flee the town without anyone noticing at night. They would have to protect them because the nights outside the town are very, very dangerous. If they succeed, Theodore would send the players to Otkar, the monster hunter, who is after the Irrwurz threatening the town. Otkar would go with them on the hunt to kill the Irrwurz and provide them with further lore and information and likely be the one who tells the players about the hag. Of course, the players would be able to get to Otkar before going to Theodore, as he's just another tavern goer. Instead of helping Theodore, they might have gone to the mayor, who might have asked them to cull some kobolds roaming in the woods. Helping the mayor and snitching Theodore out might be the easiest and smoothest way to get the axe, but Theodore would be done for. On the other hand, if they help Theodore, they might rile up the town, and either the hag's minions or some of the townsfolk might visit them outside Theodoric's grave if they anger them too much. And then maybe they might visit the hag instead of leaving town directly, freeing the town of Untergromber of their peril once and for all. You might have noticed that I didn't weave personal motivations for each player character into this short adventure prompt. But that's because I don't have any player characters to think about right now, since this is just a relatively short adventure and part of a bigger campaign, or thought of as part of a bigger campaign. I wouldn't set something in for everyone. An example might be some personal interest in Theodoric's grave. There could be an ally of Theodoric buried inside, who is the ancestor of one of the party members. This would fit very well if they are looking to restore the honor of their family bloodline or something like that as their motivation. Like that, you tie the grave not only to the party's motivation, but also to one of the characters' motivation. All in all, I've merely set the stage with the examples I post in my other world building videos. The players' decisions and their actions will write the story in one or the other way. I hope you liked my video and agree on my take that you can write good campaigns and adventures simply by world building. If you do, leave a like and subscribe, and maybe tell us in the comments on other tips to write good campaigns. See ya!